So, welcome back to our yoga class on a Sunday evening. Nice Sunday evening. You think it's worth sitting up for a yoga class? Or anyway, good. So, shows that you're interested. Huh? I'm thankful for that. So, let's start again the next part of yoga. Now, the word yoga has been heard many times. There are many common, it's one of the commonest words used today, especially after yoga has become popular all over the world. This is the International Yoga Day and so on. It's become a very popular word, commonly used. So we need to look at the word. And also before we go into that, we need to see also that there are different kinds of yoga. Even though one word is used, there are some people who do yoga only for physical health. It could be physical health, longevity, keep your body in good condition, make your body supple. There are even people in Hollywood who do yoga regularly, not only in Hollywood, maybe Bollywood and Tollywood, I don't know, who want to keep their bodies slim and fit, men as well as women who want to achieve the hourglass figure, and men who want to look like Bruce Lee also practice yoga. What I mean to say is that yoga is applied to various needs. Even the word yoga is used. Now, somewhere along the line, people have tried to distinguish between Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga and so on and so forth. I do not subscribe to this. I would only say, on the whole, in the word called yoga, all this is included. What they mean by Hatha Yoga is that more attention is given to the body and its good health. Now, which means, according to the Yoga Sutras, yoga teachers, good body is conducive to a good mind, and a good mind, when I say good mind, a healthy mind, a properly thinking mind, a mind that can concentrate and put its attention on something, this contributes to our understanding of our consciousness. So, nowhere in yoga does it say, put your thinking faculty in cold storage. No. In fact, the sharper the mind is, according to yoga, the calmer the mind is. There's a contradiction, you might think. People think a sharp mind is always going around doing all kinds of somersaults. And no. A calm mind is a mind which knows how to get one pointed attention without diverting itself. And therefore it works at optimum level, not in a minimum level. This is to be noted. However, I explained to you, I mentioned in passing in one of the classes that Hatha Yoga, the word Hatha, because one of the most important textbooks where asanas are described, pranayama is described, mudras are described, bandhas are described, and samadhi is described, is something called the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Some people simply call it Yoga Pradipika. It is written by someone about 200 years ago, whose name was Swatma Rama. He belonged to the Nath Sampradaya. And he found that a textbook is necessary for the practice of yoga, so this was written. Nowadays, luckily, English and Hindi translations are available of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Sometimes you will find it under the name Yoga Pradipika, which is right, of course. Because I don't want to distinguish clearly between, I don't want to separate Hatha Yoga from other forms of yoga. Why? Because even in other forms of yoga, where you meditate, for instance, you're not doing asanas, you're meditating. Certain postures are described in which you need to sit and meditate. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, where as I mentioned earlier, every chapter is called an yoga, including Arjuna's sorrow, Karma Yoga, the yoga of work ethics, the yoga of jnana or wisdom, the yoga of Sankhya, In that, the 6th chapter is called Yoga of Meditation, Dhyana Yoga. Now, in that, although it is meant for meditation specifically, and Krishna describes to Arjuna how to meditate, you will find that posture is described. He says, sit in a comfortable posture. Posture word is used, asana. And with your neck and head held steady. Now this is an asana, Sukhasana, Padmasana, Siddhasana, everything qualifies with this definition, for this definition. And then and other things. So which means what I'm trying to say, even in the chapter called Dhyana Yoga, which is meditation, a posture is included. So a posture is very important. However, let me explain to you what Hatha Yoga also means so that you don't get the mistaken impression that Hatha Yoga is merely physical exercise. Now traditionally, the yogi, there is a yogic anatomy physiology which is very close to our anatomy physiology, maybe a little bit different here and there. According to the yogic anatomy physiology, let's forget about physiology, anatomy, from the brain, which in yogic terms is called the kapala, head, also called the sahasrara, the 1,000-petal lotus. Now from here, why I'm going into detail is because you are all supposed to become technologists, scientists. You should know these things. We shouldn't go out knowing only how to change matter to make it liquid, solid, and so on and on. We should know this is a very important thing, the study of the mind. I wish there was an institute of technology which is called Institute of Mind Technology. IMT. Maybe it will come, who knows. Anyway, so what I was trying to say, the word Hatha Yoga originates from the word Ha and Tha. Now, according to yoga, this kapala, which is also according to anatomy, Gray's anatomy, the brain, which is the sahasrara, the kapala, which is the head, the skull, from there on two sides descend two nadis. Nadi means channel. If you want to look at Gray's anatomy and see if there is really a nadis going down the brain, yes. It's called the sympathetic nervous system. The right and the left vagus nerve and the ganglionic chain starts from here and goes inside the body from both sides of the spine, close to the spine, but not in the spine. This is the autonomous nervous system, which controls all our activities, where even when you are unconscious, activities take place in your body. There are two kinds of minds. One is the conscious mind, the other is the unconscious mind. Now, there is also subconscious, we will not go into this now. The unconscious mind is that which takes care of our body even when you are asleep and are not doing anything voluntarily. When you are in deep sleep, our digestion works, our breathing works, our circulation works, and some thinking process still going on. You're not aware of it, which comes in the form of dreams. All these activities happening. You're not conscious of it. The unconscious mind has taken over. The yogis, of course, go a step further and say, behind the unconscious mind or above, there is the superconscious mind. So this is controversial. We'll leave it there. So this ganglionic chain that descends, the nadis that come from both sides of the brain inside the body, according to yoga, now this Gray's anatomy doesn't say this. According to yoga, the left nadi is considered to be the cool nadi. And the right channel is supposed to be the hot channel, meaning sun. Sun is the right, which is the short form used is ha for that, fire. And ta, cool, the moon is the left nadi. So therefore, Hatha Yoga actually means dealing with how to adjust your left and right nadis. That's what it means. It need not necessarily be just physical exercise. Although through asanas and through breathing techniques, it tries to bring about the balance between the ha and the tha. Therefore, it's called Hatha. Hatha Yoga. So don't think that it is separate from all other yogas. No. However, let me add, if you are practicing meditation only, or you are a devotee who is practicing bhakti yoga, it need not necessarily mean that you should be practicing asanas. However, if you ask me, going step by step, doing some asanas and pranayam and moving forward is a very systematic step-by-step approach to understanding of your true consciousness, the essence of your consciousness. This is the whole aim of yoga. Right. Now, are there only two nadis? No. According to yoga, also in Gray's Anatomy, there's another channel which is the one that is in the middle of the spine. What is that? The spinal cord. Now this too is the autonomous nervous system, and the spinal cord, starting again from the brain, coming from cerebellum, cerebrum to cerebellum, to the nape of the neck and down to the bottom, is the central nervous system. That is the central nervous system. It doesn't have to work for the breathing or the circulation or anything of the kind. It has other functions to perform. According to yoga, one's attention and awareness, which normally is either in the left nadi or in the right nadi, which means if the mind can be made to stay calm and not get too hot or too cold, which is an expression. It's not, mind doesn't get hot or cold. It's an expression showing either too active or too cool. When this happens, then the awareness is in the spinal cord, which the yogis call the Shushumna nadi. This is Ida, this is Pingala, you don't have to by heart this, and the middle one is the Shushumna nadi. Now, according to the yogis, when your awareness is shifted from these two nadis and brought to the Shushumna nadi, which, as you know, is merely, in the physical sense, a continuation of the brain. The spinal cord is actually a thin layer, but it has all the material that is there in the brain. It has not been researched properly. I'm coming to that. Not only that, the yogis believed that when the Shushumna nadi reaches the end, that is the space behind your perineum, there it ends in a center which they call the Mooladhara. If you ask me, in Gray's Anatomy and Physiology, is there a Mooladhara chakra? I would say, if you look at the, go home, take Gray's Anatomy and look at the spine and the sympathetic nervous system and central nervous system, you will see that in each of these nerve fibers come from the center and go to the side, and then from there they come and form a plexus in the middle. Wherever there is a plexus, according to biology, physiology, there is a chakra according to yoga. One plexus which everybody knows, I think, solar plexus. If you study self-defense, especially girls, in a dark corner if somebody attacks you, keep your hand straight and give one poke in the solar plexus. At least for some time the guy can't do anything. He will run for his life. If he can run, mostly he may collapse. Why? Because the solar plexus, which is at the end of the rib bone. Don't go and poke anybody and check in your class. Joking. So, this is an important plexus, which is a cluster of nerves. That's where the yogis say exists the Manipura chakra, the center of the Manipura, which means Puram means a place, a village or a settlement, and Mani means a jewel. So anyway, so like that, there are 6 plexuses plus the brain. If you want to go into the details of the 6 plexuses, which the serious yogi gives attention to and fixes his attention on, and therefore fixes his awareness on. If you need to go into details of the study, don't do any practice written in that book, but if you want to understand the theory of what chakras mean, read a textbook called, which is again available in English, The Serpent Power by Sir John Woodroffe. Sir John Woodroffe was a retired justice of the Calcutta High Court during the British times. He was himself an Englishman who after retirement joined the yogis, changed his dress and studied in detail what this is all. So the Serpent Power is an English translation of the text called Sat Chakra Nirupana. That means describing the 6 centers, 6 chakras. All these are technical things, but I want you to know that there are something. Yoga is not merely standing on your head. Well, it's good to stand on your head, having said that. So, you can get that available. It's available on Amazon, I think. Sat Chakra, it's called The Serpent Power by author Avalon. Right. Now, the yogi believes that when your awareness is brought to be applied on the 6 centers and the brain, your mind then ascends to higher levels of awareness. It breaks free of limitations in which it has been hypnotized into. It is dehypnotized, come out of this slumber of limitations and moves over to greater awareness as the awareness shifts from the lower to the higher centers called the chakras. This is the process of yoga. There is a word used which I am reluctantly using because the word has become now very cheap. Everybody is using it. Kundalini. You know, if you read some magazines, they'll tell you that for $6,000 you can raise your kundalini. So we are all fools. We worked our entire lifetime to get it moving somewhere. So this kundalini is merely a name given to the energy that resides in your spine, the Shushumna, which is usually the end of the Shushumna, and the yogi through the practice of asana, pranayama, meditation and so on and so forth, and devotion also to some extent, makes it possible for this energy to go up, which means his awareness goes from the solid to the liquid to the next state and so on till it reaches Akasha, which is the all-pervading primeval substance, and beyond. Then it touches its own center, which is the aim of yoga. In yoga, the final aim is to attain samadhi. When you say samadhi, it means the mind is at complete rest, and therefore one recognizes that one is actually the core of one's consciousness, which is not limited to just one center, me, but is in everybody. This state is called samadhi. Now for that, practically there are ways and means, yama niyamas, which we will discuss in the next class, rules and regulations, like anything else. You need to study medicine, you need to study physics. There are certain rules and regulations for your safety, for instance. If you can't go and put your hand into an acid to test, you need to wear gloves. In the same way, imagine that the yama niyamas, rules and regulations, is to make you ready to proceed into this. Then after yama niyama comes asana, then pranayama, then pratyahara, then dharana, dhyana and samadhi. So because it has 8 parts starting with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and finally samadhi, which cannot be called a part, it is a culmination, but still 8 parts. So it has very often been called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashta meaning 8 and Anga means parts or branches. Right. Now, I want you also at some point to get hold of this book. I'm not trying to sell my book, but it's very important that you read this book, which is called Yoga Also for the Godless. Not for the godless, also for the... Even if you are not interested in God, you can read it. That's what I mean. And it's a shloka by shloka translation and interpretation of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are the ultimate textbook for yogis, apart from the Yoga Pradipika. So, according to the classic Sutra of Patanjali, the first sutra that starts in Patanjali's Yoga. Now, again, I have to tell you that the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali does not start with practice. It starts with theory first, because you should know where you're going. Not simply start practicing one day, not knowing what you're doing. That is dangerous. So where are you going? You're going to the state called Samadhi. And Samadhi is the state when your mind has become so subtle that it is able to be free of distractions and remain in this natural state. Therefore, the first chapter is Samadhi Pada, which means where you're going. Second is Sadhana Pada, what are you practicing? And the third is Vibhuti Pada, which means what capacities do happen to the yogi when he practices yoga. And then the last is Kaivalya Pada, where he attains perfect freedom from all fluctuations of the mind as remains in blissful and peaceful state. That is Kaivalya Pada. So these are the 4 chapters. Now, when the Yoga Sutra starts, we will also discuss asanas and so on. We have many more classes coming up. I need you to have a grounding. Just like Patanjali said, Samadhi Pada, which means where are we heading before we start standing on our heads. Okay. So, and also every yogi need not stand on his head. There are asanas without that also. But anyway. So, the first sentence of Patanjali, the textbook on yoga, is Hatha Yoga Anushasanam. This is the study of yoga. It's a very scientific, systematic way of learning. He says, here begins the study of yoga. Hatha Yoga Anushasanam. Then what is the next step? Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is freeing the mind from all vrittis. So, I'm going to read out from this book, which I wrote this, of course, but I'll read it out because I've managed to sit for long and digest the words properly. So what does it mean, Chitta Vritti Nirodha? Yoga is the restraint of the modifications of Chitta. Now, different people have used different names. They call it fluctuations, distortions and so on, which is true. It's not only, it means restraint of modifications of the mind. It can be also fluctuations of the mind, distortions. You know how the mind can distort? Suppose I like you or you like me. Then all I say will be nice. Suppose you don't like me or I don't like you. All I say will be bad. What is this? Distortion of the mind. Right? So, Patanjali, stay clear of distortions. Be factual. So, now, Nirodha also is variously translated as restrain. I would say that Nirodha means to totally free oneself from the distractions. Not even allow distractions to come. Not even allow fluctuations to come. Instead of saying, remove the fluctuations. Let them not come in the first place. So what do we do about that? Now, what does vritti mean? Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Freeing the mind from vritti. It means modifications, fluctuations, distractions, opposing voices. All these can be defined by the word vritti. The brain, I am reading from my own book, the brain is not static, you know that. The brain is not static. It is intensely dynamic at its core. But regular brain activity, which happens every day, marked by attractions as well as repulsions, linked to the world that you see in front of us, the sensory world, keeps the brain distracted, and it has no time or capacity to reach its core because of the fluctuations. The whole world is around us. Some things are attractions, some things are repulsions. So the brain is usually torn between this attraction and repulsion. Therefore, it is always engaged in avoiding what it doesn't like and attracting what it likes. And therefore, in that fluctuatory state, it is not possible for it to calm down and go into its core. When these distractions and fluctuations disappear, the incessant movement of thoughts is silenced, almost eradicated. The brain then, remember, closely listen, no longer dissipates energy. You see what happens when these fluctuations happen? You are regularly dissipating energy. Now here, when this stops, there is no dissipation of energy. The brain no longer dissipates energy. Then it settles into a silent, deep and tranquil state, which according to Patanjali, it's the core of the mind. In this state, the yogi is filled with tremendous energy, experiencing bliss and fullness. The quiet and tranquil mind is empowered with the highest intelligence and becomes capable to understand the fullness of the superconscious mind. As soon as the external and internal activities of the brain are curbed, collective wisdom is realized. Free of the burden of useless information, the brain turns inwards and realizes its full potential. As the brain is now clear of all the past rubbish, debris, it becomes creative and subtle. According to yoga, the core of our consciousness, when this happens, has all the knowledge and wisdom a priori within itself. It doesn't have to learn, it is there within. Wisdom is not acquired from outside, but is revealed from within when various conditions are removed. The key to unlocking this vast, almost omniscient potential is yoga. This is yoga. So then what happens? The third shloka says, then the yogi lives in his true state. Tada drishta swarupe avasthanam. There is abiding in one's own original form, which is kaivalya. Now the whole of the practice of yoga is ultimately meant for this. Now I am going to read one sutra in the practice section. Sadhanapad. Sutra 4 says, Vritti sarupyam itaratra. At other times, which means when it is not tranquil through the practice of yoga, which means when it is not established in its original state of the superconscious, the brain or the mind, you can use any word, takes the form of the fluctuations of conflict and agitation. Now, Patanjali, like a scientist, like a psychologist, goes into a very serious understanding of this. Since you are all serious people, I want to do this, instead of simply saying, oh, do this asana, that. We'll come to that. But according to Sutra 5, Patanjali says there are 5 kinds of fluctuations in the mind. 5. He has divided it into 5. It may not be accurate, but somewhat. Those are those which are painful, we all know that, and those which are pleasurable. But Patanjali calls both as distractions. The painful as well as pleasurable, because all are fluctuations. Now you will see this. When you have a pleasurable feeling, that pleasurable feeling does not last for a long time. Or the person from whom you expect that pleasurable feeling may not always give you a pleasurable feeling. Then what happens? Pain. In the same with pain, you are in great pain and then some bright spot comes and you are out of that pain. For the time being you are in pleasure. Now according to Patanjali, both are fluctuations. They cause the mind to come down, they cause the mind to go up. If it goes up, it will also come down. This is the nature of the mind. Right. So then he enumerates 5 types of fluctuations of the mind, which when calmed, the mind becomes quiet and is aware of its true essence, which is infinite, powerful, intelligent, and all-pervading. Our true essence, not anything coming from outside. But what prevents it are these 5 fluctuations. He has, after saying 2 divisions, fluctuations which are painful and fluctuations which are pleasurable, he then further divides it into 5 types of fluctuations, or causes of the causes of the 5 type of fluctuations. One is valid knowledge, Pramana, knowledge which can be proved. Now the problem is, knowledge can be proved, there are possibilities that it can be disproved also. So while Pramana or valid knowledge is one of the greatest of proofs according to the even according to the Tarka Shastra or Nyaya Shastra, it cannot, this knowledge that comes, valid knowledge through Pramana or proof which is in front of you, is liable at some point, could also be disproved. At one time we believed certain things are like the earth is flat. They said it is a Pramana. There is evidence, there is valid knowledge. Then the knowledge came that it is round. So that valid knowledge becomes invalid. Therefore, Patanjali says even valid knowledge is a fluctuation. The next is Viparyaya, which means misconceptions or illusions. This we know. Optical illusions you are aware of. If you put a pencil into water, even though it is straight, you will see it go down like this at one angle. This is an optical illusion. Now this is an optical illusion, there are also mind illusions. If you really like somebody, that person may look very nice. If you don't like that person, even the best person will look a little bad to you. This is mind illusions, physical illusion. There are many such illusions. Then delusions. Delusions, vikalpa means only words are there but actuality is not there. Through words a person can say, oh, I am a good man, but actually he may not be a good person. But words can build it up. So such delusion consisting of only words is called vikalpa. The other fluctuation, even sleep is included in that, because in sleep, which is nidra, one is in a total world of ignorance. Nothing one is aware of. Everything goes into a kind of nescience, into illusion. So nidra is also a fluctuation. Then the last 5th fluctuation is memory, smriti. So how would memory become a fluctuation? Because we live all our lives based on our past memories. If in the past somebody gave us trouble, all our lives we live with this unpleasant memory of this guy giving, or this lady, whoever giving us trouble, and that remains in our smriti, in our memory. We can never see that person as that person actually is because we have this memory. Now suppose we have good memories of a person who has, I'm just giving an example, who has treated us well and so on. Even if that person turns out to be treacherous, because of these memories you will think it's a good person. So these are the 5 fluctuations from which Patanjali says one has to be free of, or one has to understand so that it doesn't affect us, and eventually these fluctuations cease because we are not interested in them, and then the mind goes to its core. Now, verbal delusion is very interesting. It's caused by using words to exaggerate one's feelings. Literature, romantic, devotional poetry, hyperbolic expressions are used to heighten emotion. It's a classic example of verbal delusion. I'll give you an example of verbal delusion in the language called Urdu. Somebody may invite you home and say, आप हमारे गरीब खाने में आइए, गरीब खाने में. अच्छा, you go there and see the गरीब खाना is a big palace. Why is the word गरीब खाना used? An exaggeration, implying, oh, I am very humble, which is merely a verbal delusion. Okay, the next sentence might be, after you have your meal and all, अपना ही घर समझिए. It's a verbal delusion, believe me. You stay for 2 days, they'll start wondering when is this fellow getting out of here. I'm giving you an example of verbal delusion. So all these are fluctuations of the mind. To stay free of them is to make the mind calm. Which means what? Not to give too much worth to words. Words can be anything. So the yogi who understands this treats the pleasant and unpleasant as the same. This is called the yogic state. Okay. Right. So I have given you a basic understanding of what yoga wants, which is to free the mind from fluctuations caused due to many reasons. Patanjali has given 5, it's a general categorization, but it can be many. And to stay calm and quiet in the midst of fluctuations. You cannot escape from the fluctuations as long as you live in this world. Mentally understand that these are of no value to me. I'll use it when necessary, but actually they are of no value to me. And move quietly, then the mind becomes tranquil. No matter what happens, somebody may praise you, somebody may curse you, but the yogi is the same. Mana apimana. In the Gita says mana and apimana is the same for the yogi, because he sees that these are both fluctuations. Mana is also a fluctuation, it can cause a lot of dangers. If somebody keeps praising me, you're a great man, my ego might grow and one day I'll come falling from a height down. The yogi avoids that. Abhamana, when somebody says you are an idiot, I get very angry. So, why should I? This is the yogic life. Apart from asana, pranayama and all. This is the psychology of yoga. Suppose somebody praises me, take it cool. Suppose somebody curses you, take it also cool. This is the life of yoga. So when you start looking at this in the mind and practicing it in daily life, then in the midst of all circumstances, your mind is free of fluctuation. It's quiet. That quietness is required to go into meditation, which is dhyana. Otherwise, you can sit and watch your breath, all fine, for 10 minutes you're okay. But once you get out, you're back into the same thing. So, to understand the psychology of the mind, what fluctuations are, how to free the mind from fluctuations, it's very important. Okay, look at this. Suppose You call me a fool, suppose. And I don't know English, what happens? Nothing. I can't read any meaning into the word. You said this guy is a fool. If I know Hindi, I might be very happy. I might think you're calling me a fool, a flower. But the yogi, if it is a fool or a fool, is equal. So, this is the study of the mind. So, the ultimate aim of yoga is to free the mind from all fluctuations and to make it calm and tranquil. In the calmness and tranquility, it reaches its core. I'm summing up for today. It reaches its core, and from that core, when it reaches, it realizes that it is not a limited being, but something extraordinary. Something, Purusha, the word used is Purusha. Please don't mistake Purusha for male here. Purusha means the consciousness. Physically one may be male or a female, but a yogi or a yogini, when it reaches the ultimate essence, it reaches the Purusha, which means pure consciousness, pure energy, undissipated energy, and almost universal intelligence. This is the aim of yoga. Whether this happens or not, one has to find out only through practice. It's like any other science. And whether the practice of asanas and pranayam can bring about changes in your pathology, in your physical constitution, this also can be researched and proofs will come out if you really do scientifically. Suppose somebody is ill and he or she starts practicing yoga. Physically, now I'm talking about the physical body. Keep looking at all the parameters. After some time, if you see that the parameters have improved, that means something is happening. If it is not, either something is not happening or he may be doing the wrong practice. Correction is required. So there is also an entire section on therapy, yoga therapy for the body, for the physical. The principle on which yoga works is that if you have a good body, then your mind is usually good and sharp and strong and tranquil. What will happen if you're pain all the time? Can you meditate? No. And then from there the mind, and then what we discussed just now, to understand what the fluctuations of the mind are and how to go beyond. This is the aim of yoga. So, to the next classes onwards, I'm going to go a little practical on how to practice and so on. But at the moment, I think we have covered much of the theory required. So for today, I'm winding up this class. 10 minutes. We have another 10-15 minutes. If you have any questions, please ask me and I'll try to answer them if I know the answer. Thank you. Actually, I am enjoying these classes, to be frank.
So kind of you. Thank you so much, sir. Let me invite the students. We have a few questions that students
Yes,
have
please.
typed.
Sir, I have a question from the, let's say, first two classes or so. That is there a material benefit of yoga also, or is it just because that we are much more calmer that we end up finding a, let's say, a cure to a deadly disease, or is it some scientific advantage also? For example, let's say, is it just that you get bliss and become calmer, and then you
Now,
end up
for
finding
this
a better?
for this question, I have a counter question. It is useful means, is it only physically useful? Is the mind not connected to the physical? Can something be physically useful and the mind not be affected by it? So, if it is useful to the mind, then it is also useful to your physical body and the world in which you live. If you have a good mind, you automatically have a good brain, good thinking capacity, which is what you need in this world also. It's not merely to go into some kind of a blissful state. Right? I have been practicing yoga, and I think from the age of 10, and I think I have derived many benefits from it. And do you see me working all the time doing something or the other? The only difference is there may be other people also working all the time, but one setback and they get totally disarmed. It doesn't happen here. Why? Because you are tuning into the core of energy which is in you, which can be tapped at any time. So it's not just going into some blissful imaginary state. It is more to do with calming the mind, so the mind can also work at its optimum capacity. No working is not appreciated in yoga. It's not meant for people who retire from the world and sit in cave. No. Well, short periods of retirement to practice may be good, but it's not meant for you to go away somewhere and sit quietly. I also sat in isolation and did a lot of work, but that is only to bring about a change, not to enjoy in itself. I hope I have kind of answered your question.
Yes, sir. So to summarize what you just said, ki you become better at controlling your brain and energy, and hence you will be better at your job.
Absolutely. Even in daily activity, your capacity, see, look, even though you are meditating with closed eyes, when you open your eyes, there are also open eyes. When you open your eyes, your view and vision will be sharper than somebody who is not meditating. Because the organs also get some rest. When they rest, they are revived. This is fresh spurt of energy in them. Good question. Good question. Yeah.
My question is, you were talking about the brain kapala and thousand petal lotus flower. So what is the analogy?
There is no thousand-petaled flower in the brain, of course. There is no such thing. When you say thousand-petaled lotus, when you use the word sahasrara in Sanskrit, it means countless. Symbolically it's thousand, but it actually means countless, which means in this part, which we call the Sahasrara Chakra, which Kapala is the skull, the head, the whole head. And inside the brain is the Sahasrara. The brain is called the Sahasrara. That means it has thousands and thousands, millions of nerve endings and cells. It's not just confined to 1,000. 1,000 is a figurative expression. And it is the controlling center for the whole system, right? Yes or no? Any action and any thought that takes place it is initiated here. And then when you react, it goes back there, the information. So this is why it's called the Sahasrara Chakra. There is no flower inside. I mean, it's a figurative expression.
Yes, actually no flower inside, but I was thinking about the analogy of our brain and thousand petal flowers. So yeah, I got that.
You got it. Yeah. So also, wait a minute, 1 minute. A flower is something that blooms, right? So in this analogy, the mind, which is before the practice of meditation or yoga, whatever, the flower is not bloomed, it is there. When you begin, it blooms. When it blooms, then the fragrance, everything comes out of it. And when there is fragrance, the bees automatically find the flower. So this is the analogy.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So my question is that what is the step one if one wants to start his or her spiritual journey, or however you define the journey of a yogi? Like what should be the first step that one can take right now?
First step you are already doing. You are attending the class. This is the first step.
The next step.
Next step, maybe I will meet you and then we will discuss the next step. But at the moment, before you meet me, my suggestion is some of the textbooks which I have mentioned in the classes, please start reading them slowly. Don't get into any practice at the moment. Clear yourself. Read some of the textbooks. You will arrive at some. And meanwhile, by the time we finish this course, I think you will also have some practical to do. It's a little early in the day to say that now. And you are imitating Kapila. You know Kapila? The great sage Kapila, who's the founder of Sankhya, and yoga also comes from there. The meaning of the word Kapila is golden haired. Kapila. So you seem to be imitating Kapila. Your hair is golden. I'm joking. Nice color. Okay. So this is what you should be doing. Reading some of the texts which I have mentioned and then slowly begin to understand. Don't jump into sudden practice. Step one is keep your mind clear. Try to understand. So attend all the classes which we are going to have in future. Something will come out of it and then you will say, is this the first step? You will ask me and then we will see yes or no.
Thank you.
Right.
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaste, namaste.
Sir, my question is, you talked about yoga as therapy.
Yes.
And I have felt so many times the people in who are very miserable, it's very hard to give them yoga as therapy. So can you please say more about it?
When you say miserable, are you saying physically?
I think people who are physically miserable are also like mentally miserable, and those who are directly mentally miserable, they are actually
No, you cannot directly do yoga therapy to people who are mentally disturbed. It's not possible to do that. But for physical problems like pain in the back, pain in the legs, muscular pain, there are many treatments, therapy treatments in yoga. When that goes, perhaps 50% of the problem is solved, then only you should look into the mind. Because in some cases, the mind problems can be handled only by a psychiatrist. We should not give them the wrong impression, oh, if you practice this yoga, you will be okay and so on. But you can also, meditation again, you see many of the people who suffer from depression and so on, their mind is already interiorized. They live in their own world. Now if you give them meditation, it may become worse. Right, you're right. It may become worse. So therefore, one has to go to a proper teacher who knows how to handle this. It should not be just everything that a normal person does cannot be given to a person who is mentally disturbed. So we need to talk to this person, check this person, what are his problems, and then choose what is to be given to that person. As far as physical is concerned, a good yoga therapist has to be sought out. We should not read books and start doing therapy for yoga. If I suggest, there is a very good yoga therapy center in Lonavala who are doing pioneer work on this, the Yoga Institute, Lonavala, near Bombay. I know of people who have gone there and benefited a lot. We don't have yoga therapy here. We have only yoga courses, teacher training courses here. So that's my answer to your question.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So my question was related to word delusions.
Huh?
Word delusions. You said
Word
that.
delusion. So you mean you know what word delusions are?
No. So my question was related to that. So
Okay.
bhakti is also considered to be one of the method for to reach a realization.
Right.
And there they use bhajans or poetry to praise the God.
Right.
So is or are they considered to be word delusions?
Strictly from the Vedantic and Yogic, when I say yoga, I'm talking about Ashtanga Yoga. This point, they are all considered to be delusions. But when I feel from my heart some kind of respect and love for a being, deity or anything, and naturally some word expression comes from my mind praising those beings, then I cannot call it a world delusion. The word delusion is basically applied to the physical world and the work that you do here and the people you see in this physical world, not on a supramental level. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. If you use the same words for another human being, then you are in a delusion. Suppose you say, oh, you are my guru, so you are equal to Krishna or you are equal to whatever deity I worship, and so you are great, then it is a delusion from the yogic point of view. But if you say that Krishna or the divine being who I worship is great, then it does not become a delusion. In human relationships, it becomes a delusion. You get what I'm trying to say? So from the strict point of view of yoga, even that is a delusion. From the Vedantic point of view, the world itself is a delusion. Now, this is a hard nut to crack. There is no such. According to Vedantis, this world does not exist. There is only one reality called the Brahman. However, even such people have sung devotional songs. Why? Because the mind is a being that requires emotions. You can't make the mind totally dry. If you make the mind totally dry, you will lose the heart. When I say heart, I'm talking about feelings. And any words that exaggerate feelings are fine. But in practical life, when you behave with other people, if you tell a lie instead of telling the truth in flowery words, then it's a delusion. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Suppose I see you and I want something from you and I say, oh, you are a wonderful man. This is a word delusion and we always accept it because we like to be flattered. If you go to a yogi, sometimes he may say that you are a horrible fellow and all that, so you probably run away from him. But why is saying that? Just to test if you are falling for this verbal delusion trap. So, in his own place, devotional practices, delusion has a different application. In yogic practice, devotion has a different application, delusion, word delusion. And from the Vedantic point of view, the whole thing is a delusion, except a supreme being.
Yeah, I got it.
This is a very good question because the Gita also has 12th chapter is Bhakti Yoga. So my suggestion is read that chapter. You will get much more clarity than what I said just now. Go to the Gita, find a good translation, read the 12th chapter called Bhakti Yoga. Ask, what is Arjuna asking Krishna and what is his answer?
Okay, I will go through that chapter.
So there are two more questions. Will you like to take them?
No problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
So, sir, you talked of 5 different types of fluctuations today. And you also said that even if you practice some breathing exercises, you might stay calm for 10 minutes also, but then again, you are back.
Right.
So my question is like, can the ultimate goal of achieving long-lasting tranquility or the process of freeing oneself from fluctuations be achieved by a person like me who is very much connected in the social world? Given that I am a part of such a social world wherein I have to accept and respond to those fluctuations.
I think his basic question was, I said that you can keep calm for 10 minutes while you meditate, but when you go out again, it will come back to you. This is the basic question. Yes. So I think for a few days when you start, the fluctuations will happen when you come out of it. But as you continue to meditate and you become an expert in meditation, then you can maintain your levels even in the outside world. Part 1. Part 2, even in this social world which we live. Look, I also live in this society. We do a lot of work for others. The problem is that I don't judge myself whether the work succeeds or fails. This is the problem. And expect nothing in return. Then you'll have no fluctuation. Look, charity is giving, not even thinking if anybody is responding or respecting us and saying thank you to us. If you have no such expectations, charity is one of the best ways to remove fluctuations instead of causing fluctuations. When I say charity, not just money. Social work, what you said. Social work is a wonderful thing because it purifies our mind as long as you are not dependent on the response. And if you are a social being, to cut yourself off from social work is not going to sort your problem. Continue to do the work, but do not expect anything in return, not even gratitude. Why? Because you are not giving anything to anybody. Everything belongs to the world. We are only passing from one end to another. Jesus Christ said in the Bible about charity, he said, let not the left hand know what the right hand giveth. So, even while you do social work, in fact, social work is a wonderful way to move forward because it purifies your mind. You are trying to help people who are unfortunate. You are serving Daridra Narayana, God in misery. But keep this in mind, if you want to avoid the mind being fluctuated, don't expect anything in return. If it comes, okay. If it doesn't come, it's okay. Then you can put both together and live in this world and continue to work. Believe me, this is what we are also doing. I hope I gave you food for thought.
Yes. So even being connected in this world, we can very much achieve that tranquility.
Very much. How can you disconnect from this world? You tell me. Where will you go? To the cave? If you go to the cave, you are still carrying your mind. Mind is the problem. So, are you free of your mind in the cave? So, can you free it while you are still here? Only possibility for most of us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Is my voice audible?
Yeah, very much.
Yes, sir. Sir, there are many rishis, muni, yogis, and maharishis. Sir, for example, Maharishi Bhrigu and Durvasa. Sir, these are highest level of yogis, but still they are not able to manage their anger. So what can be
Now,
the reason for this?
so now forget about Bhrigu and Durvasa because they are all in history past. Can we think of yogis now?
No, sir.
No. Swami Vivekananda,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana Maharshi, contemporary yogis. So, when the Puranas write about Durvasa and Bhrigu, there may be some reason why these characters are presented this way. It may be for a particular reason. A true yogi, you would think, does not get angry. Well, he may not get angry, but he can even pretend to be angry to get work done. It may not affect his mind. Hatred is not, hating is more important than not getting angry. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, I have seen great yogis who, whatever you do to them, they don't get angry. So, therefore, if you find a few rishis, not all, like Durvasa, famous, there must be some reason behind why he's acting that way, and we don't have to imitate him. We can imitate the rishis who are contemporary and who we see lead an exemplary life without getting angry. And don't think that legitimate anger is bad. Sometimes you may get legitimately angry for something, which is okay. The moment it comes, it has to be nipped in the bud and it has to be put away, not allowed to continue. Okay. Point number 3, hatred. Don't have hatred in your mind. You may temporarily be upset with somebody, but don't hate that person. From the yogic point of view, that is the more important thing. Now I will give you an example of a contemporary sage who was supposed to, people thought he was getting angry, but he was not getting angry. The Sai Baba of Shirdi. There are cases where he caught people and beat them up. Now, is that anger? Or is he doing something to take off certain karmas which they have committed in their lives? What does he have to gain by beating them up? These are the things we have to think carefully. So when Bhrigu goes and puts his leg on Vishnu's chest in the Puranas, what does Mahavishnu do? Does he get angry? No. He goes and explains to him. Why? Because he sees that this man is a great rishi and he is doing it for a purpose. So for ordinary people like us, that is not a style to imitate. You get what I mean? Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good question, but very good. I have also wondered sometimes. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar. Enjoy your Sunday now. It's already 6.